I bet I drill a clean hole in somebody today.
This is not something that I wanted to happen, even expected to happen. Tekken 7 is the game that broke all the records in terms of viewerships on Twitch. On Twitch, the viewership peaked at like 249,000. That was enough to topple Street Fighter at the time because they were in a rough position. I don't know if it would beat Street Fighter 6, but Street Fighter 5, it surpassed it. The king in that era was Smash. Smash was a little bit higher at about 270, but still, Tekken was finally rivaling the big dogs. But then also in terms of sales, Tekken 7 was monstrous. If you talk about how it pushed the franchise to being mainstream, the Twitter account Dextero now often reports on the ongoings with Tekken, whether it be things from Harada, whether it be things that happens at tournaments. This is something that Tekken 7 introduced and established this game as a force to be reckoned with, not only in terms of fighting games, but putting up 12 million copies sold is a banger for most games. To see that that game was able to accomplish so much and build so much and give the developers so many assets and resources and so much support from Bandai Namco, it was truly a magical thing to see because, we heard the stories about how Tekken Tag Tournament 2 almost killed the franchise. We heard the stories of how Tekken 7 had a rush development in terms of story. That's why it was so bad. The narrator. We heard about how they were limited in what they could do. This is why they didn't do any game modes. This is why Tekken 7 was stripped of a lot of stuff. We heard those stories. We know them. And to see Tekken 8 have a totally different start, and when you try to figure out why that is, I mean, the answer is very clear. The developers just had a very different idea of what they wanted this game to be, and that idea clashed so much with players. They removed a lot of the identity, they removed a lot of what made Tekken Tekken, and also people are now talking about how there's too many mechanics layered on top. And we're not even talking about how powerful it is, we're just talking about how it's consuming what Tekken is. You're more so playing with these mechanics than the actual Tekken itself, and a lot of people are just starting to feel lost and they're also abandoning the game. I shared to Twitter, Tekken 8 player count on Steam is the lowest it's ever been. We need the Fakram update to go well. One person says it's not going to, but I appreciate the thought of the possibility. This being the most liked comment shows how people are just at a loss of words and trust and hope for this game, and it sucks to see this. Blackheart says, I seriously hope it fails if the next patch is not good. When Blackheart said this, a lot of people were confused. You have Fighter GM saying, pretty crazy to prey on the downfall of a game that you are known for, make content for, money off of. Is crazy work regardless of it going in a bad direction. And this is the thing that I always try to highlight, right? When I get upset about Tekken, when I rant about Tekken, it's not because I'm trying to doom the game or like kill the game. It's because at one point in time, Tekken was a game that was my favorite. Tekken 7, I know a lot of people don't like Tekken 7, but for me, I didn't really get to experience all of the older Tekkens in its heyday. But Tekken 7, for me, was like top 5 best game ever made. And to see the follow-up fall apart, if you go all the way back to the beta, even Harada said the combos are too long. In the beta, he said that. But then when the game releases, we see that the combos are just as powerful and has only gotten more influential. It's crazy. But even then, like when I say all these things, I'm not like trying to prey on the downfall of the game. I just want the game to be better. A lot of the things that made season 2 problematic are still here, and some of them are still being added to the game, like what they did to Zafina. That wasn't a launch season 2 thing. That was something that the emergency patch that was supposed to fix the game did. So I get it. It's a lot riding on this, and I hope it goes well because a lot of people love the franchise. A lot of people love the game, and the developers are just having a very tough time in delivering what the players want, but also exploring new territory. Someone asks Blackheart, why do you prey on the game's downfall? Blackheart says, because they brought it upon themselves. I love Tekken since day one, and they spit in my face. And this is how a lot of people are feeling. Like the developers just did not listen to feedback. They are actively going against their players with removing commentators, with blocking content creators. They say they want the criticism, but then all of their actions, so it seems, is showing the opposite. This final update that they're doing about halfway, a little bit less than halfway through season 2, will show. One thing you got to talk about as well is like the updates that, from like a month ago, 2 months ago, they really couldn't tackle that much because of how long it takes to balance these games, tune these things. Now that they had a little bit of time to really figure out what's going on with Tekken 8 Season 2, I think this update is going to be more important in terms of what happens next with the game and whether or not players return. You often will hear people say things like, if you guys dislike the game so much, why are you still playing? And what I always thought was so interesting about the people who said that, like, I get where they're coming from and I get what they mean, but those people who say things like that, they don't realize that people are actually leaving the game, and they're leaving it in mass. Now, we are lucky because a lot of the people who are leaving or who have left, they are still watching, they're still waiting, they're still looking to see how Tekken progresses. And I think this is what creates this battle that you see in a lot of comment sections, where you have people being upset with the game, people say quit the game, but those guys have quit the game. They're just watching to see if the game can recover or see if it will fail. Fakamam is one of the most feared characters in Tekken, and that's for a reason, right? Launch Libre was the most diabolical. Launch Fakamam was pretty much on that same level. We got lucky though, because the pandemic basically stopped all tournaments and people didn't really get to see what those characters can truly do. I mean, if you were paying attention to the offline or online tournaments, you've seen the Fakamam Grand Final mirror matches that happened. He was one of the first characters to have these raw 50-50 mix-ups from stances that you just have to purely guess on. He was the first to have insane damage, and then also, of course, the guard breaks, what he's most notorious for. So when you talk about a character like that being taken from Tekken 7 and put into Tekken 8, I understand why players expect it to go wrong, and I think this would be a great time, a perfect time for the developers to show once and for all that they are listening, because this is something that they say, this is something that they do, apologize and whatnot, but the players have yet to see that big directional change. Anna is a character who was built from the ground up for season 2. It's like those two things was built together. And when you talk about how they want to change the direction of season 2, you have to change the direction of characters like Anna. You built this character from the ground up to be this way. Now, can you change the foundations of that character and some of the other characters who were really powerful in this environment to be something else? Can you give them identity, originality back? But then Fakamam showing up in an update that's supposed to fix it all, will he be more of the same season 2 has already offered, or will he establish a new direction? People absolutely despise some of these characters because of the way that they were balanced, and I think it's unfair to the players who like that character, but also it's unfair to the character. The character can be one of the best characters or the worst characters with an overnight balance change. I mean, look at what Zafina was, how happy we were seeing Shadow play that character in season 1 in comparison to what she is now. The player count on Steam constantly dipping back and forth to the lows is not good. And I think the developers should see that the players really are just not interested in what Tekken currently is. Even though it's in the lowest of lows, it has so much potential. The game is still mainstream. It's still being reported on. Players are still watching. Tournaments are still successful. It's just your average player just isn't having a good time. The game is too aggressive. It's too fast paced. It's too exhausting as well.